Good afternoon, or should I say, what is happening, everybody? This is Dave Croft, and welcome to the 52Qs podcast. It is so good to be with you here today. We are live doing a very special Q&A episode. It's an Ask Me Anything. Within reason, but anything. You can ask me anything. It could be about sync licensing, it could be about production, it could be about composition, it could be about my beard care routine, whatever. But it is so good to be with you today. And as always, a huge word of thanks to our family, friends, and neighbor subscribers of 52Qs who really do keep all of this happening. I know we've got some family and friends and neighbors hanging out in the chat today. Right now, we've got Mad About Nothing, we've got Yuka, we've got Michal, we've got B. Tadelius. Really good to see you. Good to see you, David. Thanks for joining us. Greg, what is happening? Mad About Nothing. Chris got a beard trim. Oh, careful! You're gonna cut away all of your rap skills like Samson. What is good? Greg from Philly. I'm pulling for the Eagles, man. I'm pulling for the Eagles in the Super Bowl. I'm an AFC West guy, and I can't. I don't want freaking the Chiefs to win again, but that's so good. What is up, Patrick? Good to see you. Good to see you. It's an Ask Me Anything. It's an Ask Me Anything. So we've got some questions in the chat that I want to go ahead and start with. And Will asked, and I know he asked this somewhat sarcastically, but Will asks over in our thread over at 52Qs, is the Kazoo going to make a comeback in 2025? Is the Kazoo gonna make a comeback in 2025? I don't know about the Kazoo making a comeback, but you know what is gonna make a comeback? Or I don't even know if it's a comeback. I don't think it's been anywhere. That is recording yourself. Recording. Oh, turn on a microphone and record something. Go make your own samples, go make your own sounds. Putting your personal self into your cues, I think, is going to become an even increasingly valuable commodity in our production process. And so that's what I would say. Is the Kazoo itself? I don't know. I bought a Kazoo. I'm like, I'm going to buy one Kazoo in my life. And so I went on Amazon and found this nice, this wooden Kazoo. And it was much more expensive than the plastic ones. But again, I thought I'm going to buy one Kazoo, and it came in like a little case. And I can actually, I can play it for you. Let's see. I can't remember what that cue is called. I think it was Lassoed Mosquito. Yeah. So this is a cue that has Dixieland. And here's my Kazoo. So that's Dave's kazooing skills. and that's published. That track is sitting up in Discovery Channel's library right now. So Kazoo, I think it's underrated. I see Mrs. 52Qs is here in the chat. Why in the world did I think I'd only buy one Kazoo in my life? I don't know. It's kind of the same reason I have one conducting baton. And I bought a really nice one with like a rosewood or a zebra wood handle and all of that. Let's see, going up into the chat, Chris got a beard trim. Yep. Let's see. David's a 49ers fan, so I hope the Chiefs go down. Yep. David asked, he said, the U.S. Copyright Office has officially reaffirmed that works generated by AI cannot be copyrighted. Is that a win for us composers? That is a really, really good question. And they actually came down with a couple of policies that I think work in our favor. Completely AI generated music cannot be copyrighted, and we already know that like BMI is not gonna allow you to register it. But the Copyright Office did say that assets, AI generated assets that have prompting from humans. Now, they left it pretty gray as far as what prompting really means, but music assets that have human interaction, those can be copyrighted. So that's really, really interesting. In fact, I feel like there was an article that came up, somebody posted on a recent, I think it was a recent podcast episode. Let me see if I can't dig that up to show you. It was on my AI episode from last week. And Ralph posted, and I'm going to put a link to this in the live chat there so you guys can take a look at it. U.S. Copyright Office says AI generated content can be copyrighted if a human contributes to or edits it. And we're going to have a link to this in our show notes as well, so that you can check that out. But it's stated in an important and helpful update issued today, and today was January 29th. Which administers copyright. Nope, I do not want to subscribe. Which administers copyright protection from the government to human authored works such as films, TV shows, novels, art, music, even software, clarified that some forms of AI generated content can, in fact, receive copyright protection provided that a human substantially contributed or changed the content in question. So this is an article in VentureBeat, and we will put a link to that because it's all brand new territory, and who knows kind of where it's going to end up. B. Tadelius asks, what are the hot genres? Well, I got this was asked, and I feel like it gets asked every year at the PMC, and my answer is the hot genres are the ones that you can crush. Okay, because if you are not good at that genre, regardless of what it is, then it's not going to be successful for you. So whatever you do well, start with that. Now, that having been said, like we talked about during the What's Hot in 2025 interview I did with Timothy Andrew Edwards, I think vocal cues are getting hotter and hotter. I feel like dramedy cues and different forms of dramedy, those are evergreen. Those are going to get lots of love. And it's hard to go wrong with good old-fashioned tension cues. So yeah. Good to see you, Alex. Thanks for joining us. Really good to see you. We've got Alex Dillon as well. Led Zeppelin, a whole lot of love on Kazoo. Yes, it's been done. What's up, Music Chief? Good to see you. Good to see you, Will. Got it. We do have I just answered your question, Will, your Kazoo question. Aiton asks, do I do song feedback? Yes, I do, in a couple of different ways. One way is you can go to 52cues.com/feedback, or you can go to ismycueready.com, or you can go to cuereview.com, and you can order up your own. I'm going to actually pull this up. Oh, no, not Q Review, reviewmycue.com. Yep, you can go to reviewmycue.com if you want to check that out. But you can order up your own feedback video, depending on how long your cue is. If it's from a minute to 3 minutes and 59 seconds, it's a 15-minute video, high def. And that is $19, and I'd love to give you feedback. Another way that you can get feedback on your cues is if you are a member of the community. Every week in the weekly feedback threads, there is a post, and let me go over here so you can actually see it in weekly feedback. I have, you can submit your cue for review on the 52 Cues podcast, and that is open to all members of the community, whether they're paid subscribers or not. And I might select your cue for review on the podcast. This is what I've been doing the last few weeks, and we will be continuing that. Also, the third way you can get reviews on your cues is if you are a member of our family subscribing tier. We do cue review Zoom sessions every single week. Actually, we do it twice a week. We do a Zoom session where we listen to each other's cues. Mikhail says, how will they know a human touch is there? And I'm guessing you're saying in reference to us putting more human elements into our cues. I don't know. I think there is an intangible quality to human touched music that transcends MIDI programming. It's just, I don't know, there's just something there. And I think the more human quality, all of the beautiful imperfection of timing, of velocity, of just music breathing, and ebbing and flowing, I think that's going to become an increasing commodity. That doesn't mean that everything has to sound sloppy and unquantized, but I think those elements are the things that are going to help separate composers moving forward. Let's see. Hey, Nathan, what is happening from snowy Ottawa? Well, hello from sunny Orlando, where it is 82 degrees. I shorts and flip-flops weather, man. Mikhail said I meant it in AI copyright. Gotcha. Aiton asked a stupid question. First of all, not a stupid question. What exactly is a cue? Well, how I define a cue is an instrumental piece of music written for media, specifically with the goal of being placed in media. That could be film, television, advertisements, it could be games, but it's an instrumental piece of music written for placement in media. It's different from a song because a song has words. And I don't use the word track because that is somewhat nebulous, and that's not, So we use the term cue, again, an instrumental piece of music intended for placement in media. Let me go back over to another question we had. Michael and Yuka Reski, I know Yuka is there with us in the chat. They asked, "Hi Dave, how do you set up a 200 millisecond lead-in in Logic Pro?" One of the things that we talk about, like in the briefing room and everything, is to make sure that we leave 200 milliseconds at the beginning of the track of the cue, so that any leading MIDI or whatever gets caught up, and we don't want any clicks at the top. So here's how I do it in Logic. First of all, make sure that in Logic you've got your secondary ruler turned on. The secondary ruler in Logic is what turns on the time codes that show up in the transport area. Or in the ruler area. So you want to make sure that that's turned on. And then, this is how I've started doing it. You can set hitting G, you can set a marker. Well, first I'm going to go into 200 milliseconds, and I am looking at this area right here. We have, minutes and seconds and then milliseconds. So I am going to fast forward basically 200 milliseconds, and it's about right there. And now what I'm going to do is I'm going to place a marker. I'm going to go back to the start, place another marker, and this marker essentially represents 200 milliseconds. I'm going to go ahead and delete that. And then I want to take this marker and back it up in front of the downbeat, in front of bar 1. And in Logic, you can use the start marker. You can kind of stretch that. So you want to actually drag it backwards and then line up the end of your marker to the starting point of your first note. So in this example, I've got, this is a cue I'm working on. It has a little piano ripple intro. All right, see how it kind of starts on just like that. So what I'm going to do is my very first downbeat is right there. It's a little bit ahead of the beat, so I'm going to back that up. And now that is my 200 milliseconds, and I can do that. And so that is how, and I use markers to help with that. And that is how I do 200 milliseconds. And the 200 milliseconds is something that was requested from a library, and that's why I specifically use 200 milliseconds. Going back to the chat. What's up, chat? Wolfgang asks, "Hi Dave, how much PRO royalties per year would you say should one have with around 500 sync tracks after 3 years?" 500 is about halfway to my goal, which is 1,000. And I would imagine if they are placed and they're getting some love, then I would suggest anywhere between 1,000 to 2,000 per quarter. If maybe depending on the placements. If it's a major network like sports, it's probably going to be a little bit more. So I just saw Jeff's question. Or if versus like Netflix or like basic cable or even extended cable. So I think if you're getting 1,000 per quarter, you're in pretty good shape. But remember, that adds up. And so, you might be making 8,000, anywhere I'd say between 5,000 to 10,000 a year if you've got 500 tracks that are placed and getting you some love after 3 years. Yep. That feels a little ambitious. Right now, my average is anywhere. I mean, I've gotten royalty checks as low as 41 cents and as high as $23,000. And even I know that that's kind of on the low side of a quarterly payout. But for the most part, I am around the $4,000 to $7,000 per quarter. And that would probably be more if I did this full time. But, I have the community and my teaching schedule as well. I see your question, Will. I'll circle right back to that. But Greg asks, is 200 milliseconds a standard? I've been leaving a beat. No, that's just what was requested to me. The reason I like 200 milliseconds over leaving a beat is the beat shifts depending on your tempo. So if you have something that is really fast, then that beat might be a little quick, but 200 milliseconds is, I found that it works. It's enough to where it catches up any MIDI, but it's not too much to where it feels like there is too much silence at the beginning. Will says, Dave, I'd love your perspective on mastering stems, how to make sure stems and submixes still have a really healthy level, but my understanding is that we shouldn't master stems, right? Wow, that is a charged question, and it depends on the library, and it depends on how you are using the term stems, because stems means different things to different applications. So if you if somebody is requesting stems and their goal is to reassemble your mix because maybe they're plugging it into a game engine, or maybe they're like putting it onto like a dub mix for a film and they need granular control, then when they say stems, what they're looking for are exports of each individual track that an audio engineer is going to reassemble so that they can have fine control over the mix itself. But in my experience, when libraries say stems, they don't mean that, primarily because editors don't need that kind of granular control. They are not interested in like the hi-hat and the kick and the snare and the toms and the overhead and the violins and they're not interested in that. Instead, the libraries that I work with, when they ask for stems, they are looking for instrument groupings that technically could be kind of stacked together if they wanted to, but my libraries mercifully do not ask me to export stems and instrument groupings and making sure that all of those sounds add up to the target RMS or the target LUFS level. That gets really complicated and very tough to manage. So alt mixes, minus mixes, and stems, I leave the mastering chain on. I just mute what I don't need, solo what I need to keep, and bounce from there. And that's been my experience. But I would say make sure that the library isn't asking for unmastered stems, and make sure that you are using the term stem to describe the same thing. Jeff asks, why can't I play at 170 beats per minute? He is talking in reference to one of the cues that I recently did with him. It's called Rock the Hoop. And so I actually played my electronic kit, and it's this kind of pop punk thing. And it's at 170 beats per minute. And I confessed the other day during one of our Zoom sessions that I cranked it down. I cranked the tempo down to closer to 140, which, come on, is still pretty brisk. Why can't I play? It's not that I can't. It's just that I play better at slower tempos, especially as I am retired from gigging professionally, so I'm not playing every single week for 6 to 8 hours a week, and I'm not always on the kit, and so my chops maybe a little bit aren't what they were, but yeah. And is that Troy Dares? Troy, what is happening, my man? Hope you are doing well. Was thinking of you out there on the West Coast. I'm not sure if you're still Southern California or not, but I hope you made it through everything going on with LA. Hope you made it through. But Troy, if you don't know who Troy is, Troy was my co-host on Drummer Talk, which you could still download. Like Drummer Talk, my drumming podcast that I did. You can go to drummertalk.com. You can subscribe if you want to hear Dave from 15 years ago, 15 plus, longer than that. Yeah, getting close to 20 years ago, I was doing podcasts talking about drums. So Troy, good to see you. Washington State. All right, man. That's killer. But yeah, I had to slow this down. It's funny you mentioned Green Day, because I was totally channeling Trey Cool with that, with those things. Troy, we need to catch up, dude, because I don't even think that like the electronic kit, man, I bet you probably could have hooked me up. See, that's some two-dimensional thinking. I got stuck, but we'll catch up, man. Let's catch up on Zoom here really, really soon. Wolfgang says, okay, I must say that in 2024, my royalties were 28,000, so that might have been pretty good. That was dang good. For 500 sync queues, 100, that's amazing. Good job. Yep, you are on your way, my friend. Keep up the good, whatever you are doing, whatever libraries you are with, keep feeding those, because they're doing right by you. That's killer. Yep. 28,000. Dang. Right on. All right, we had another question come through over at 52Qs. Jeff, what is happening, Jeff, man? I noticed when you set the velocities very low on Keyscape, Dark Piano, and others, it creates a lot of hiss. How do I deal with that when programming delicate piano parts, specifically when chording? Well, you know what? I'm not exactly sure. So I have, I've got my Logic session. Let's load in one of the, I'm assuming you said the Dark Score. I'm assuming that's the one you're talking about. So let's load up some Keyscape and let's see. Let's see if we can't get the same hiss. All right, there we go. The Dark Score piano is one of my absolute favorites because it just sounds so good out of the box. It's so... Sorry for the ASMR, but that is so good. So let's look at the hiss. You said at low velocity. So I am going to, let's solo this. Let's record it, and let's just record something. All right. Did not like that E natural, but that's all right. It's live TV. All right, let's go ahead. Let's jump in here and let's pull all of these velocities down to their very, very bottom. I'm going to go ahead and change that E natural. Where is that E natural? There we go. All right. So I'm going to bounce this into place and let's take a look at it. Let's look at it in RX. See what we got. All right, looking at it here, to be honest, I'm not seeing a ton of hiss. If there was hiss, I would imagine it to be somewhere in the upper range. But if there is any hiss, maybe right in through here. Tell you what, let's increase the gain on this. Let's give it like 10 dB. Let's give it another 10 dB. Okay, let's keep pushing it. Let's push it another 10 dB. I'm going to turn down the. All right, let's start it from the top. Ooh, yeah, now we're clipping. So let's take down 5 dB. All right, so to your point, I am starting to see some of the hiss. So how could we clean this up? Well, what we could do is we could do a little bit of an isolated spectral denoise. So I'm here in RX and I'm kind of got this little spot right here. And I'm going to sample that essentially. So in RX, I can learn it. And now, no, I don't want to complete that. So now I could select the whole thing and clean up that hiss. Let's do this again. Let's get another sample selection. Whoops. Oh, that's awesome. I'm really glad that RX totally crashed on me in the middle of a live stream. That's brilliant. Yeah, let's do that. All right, welcome back, RX. So let me grab another spot here, and we're going to do in our spectral denoise. We're going to kind of learn this little area, and now render that to try to denoise it in RX. But you can see there's still a really obvious band. Versus Jeff, to answer your question, I am not sure that it's worth cleaning all that stuff up. You know, I wonder how noticeable it is. I've never used the dark score as a solo instrument, and maybe that's not the best option because the dark score piano has octave doubling and it has other kind of resonances and reverb to make it sound really, really cool. So maybe that's not the right piano for a solo piano. So you could try to clean it up. Me personally, I would probably let it ride and see what your library thought. So I hope that helps. I hope that helps. Michal asks a question over here. I'm not sure if I'll be able to join. Well, he's here, so what's happening, man? I have a question, and he's asking some briefing room questions, which is the briefing room is a feature for our family subscribers where we put briefs out to actual real libraries. And so right now we are doing some cues for some dating show cues, and we're in the middle of writing some stuff for golf. And just today, we are sending out cues for March Madness. Anyway, so that's the briefing room. Michal asks, if a cue gets forwarded in the briefing room, it means it's placed in a publisher's catalog and we can't use it elsewhere anymore, right? It depends on which library it is and what the deal is and what the terms of the deal is. The terms are rather. I will say that for all the libraries that we are working with currently, those are all exclusive arrangements, or they are, if they're not assuming the copyright of the cues, then it's still an exclusive license for that cue. So you would not be able to use it anywhere. You can't pitch it to other libraries, and you can't, go try to license it yourself necessarily. The other question, could I provide a quick summary of publishers we've already written for and guide us on how to find our tracks in their catalog? I'm a bit confused, probably because I've missed a lot of office hours. Well, this question would probably be best left in office hours. And it's not that I'm trying to be cagey or anything. I just know that the libraries that we work for, most of them do not accept unsolicited submissions. And so it's why I don't name drop them here, is I don't want to, I don't want people to get mistaken into thinking that I am asking people to submit. These are libraries we work with. We work with directly, that I have a personal and professional relationship with. And so, but I'm happy to provide that information for you. To answer your other question is on how can we find the tracks in their catalog. Some libraries do not offer public-facing catalogs. They just don't. And so if that's the case, then you might not ever see that show up unless it shows up in a cue sheet. Yep. And I hope that's all. I hope I understand. Or I hope you understand. But I'm happy to go deeper into office hours. Again, not trying to be cagey, but these are libraries that don't accept unsolicited submissions from composers they're not already working with. Excellent. Let's see. Nathan asks, what's happening, Nathan, man? Recently got a matched pair of condenser mics for recording light percussion. Any suggestions on setup and proximity that works for you? It's a great question, and it's something that I have wrangled with, and I go between two basic microphone configurations. If you want a narrower stereo field to where the rights and lefts aren't really exaggerated, then you want to set them in an XY pattern. And I've got some pins here to illustrate. So you will put the capsules on top of each other. So not where the end is, but where the microphone capsule actually is, and put them on top of each other and put them in an XY pattern on top of each other and point it to your sound source. Now, depending on what you're recording, will affect the placement. For example, if you're doing cymbal, for example, if you put it too far down the bow of the cymbal, so it's more like parallel to the edge of the cymbal, you're going to get a ton of low end resonance because of the way that the sound waves work, right? The cymbal is vibrating and the sound waves are going horizontal from the edge of the cymbal. And so if you align your microphone right there, then you're going to get tons of low end, which could be really, really cool. Or if you go really, really close over the top, you can also get some low end. I tend to go about, and please don't, even though I'm about to throw a degree here, I do not, I'm not like 32 degrees, nothing like that, but at about 45 degrees, pointed at the bow of the cymbal, that helps. The other configuration is called the NOS. And the reason I use it is it gives you a really wide stereo image without getting into weird phasing. And the angles is a 90-degree angle. So what you would want to do is you would want to make sure that your capsules are about 11 inches apart, and you would want to have them meet at a 90-degree angle. Now, there are some other, like ORTF, I think it's called, where it's like 110 degrees. And at that point, I'm freaking getting a protractor and crap out, and I don't want to get all up into that. So 90 degrees I can work out, right? So I set it to 90 degrees, and that gives me a really wide stereo image. This is really cool for recording guitar because you can put it at 90 degrees and kind of point one mic to the sound hole and the other mic to around the 12th fret or so, and get a pretty wide stereo field without having to really get heavy into phasing and the distance and all of that. I found, though, that the XY gave me a much easier to record because it's just a little XY and you can kind of move it. It's much easier to record XY than it was the NOS, the 90-degree. And I found that check this out, if I take the XY and apply a sample delay on that stereo track so that like the left side is delayed by 10 or 15 milliseconds, it sounded really, really close to the 90 degrees. So these days, I'm actually not even recording in stereo anymore, primarily because my stereo mics are pointed at my drum set right now, and I can't be bothered to like tear that down and rewire it. But the sample delay technique is so simple to use, and the cost to benefit ratio was pretty low as far as like setting up the stereo mics and pointing them and balancing them and all that. So I just record in mono. Right now I'm recording, I don't know if you can see that. I'm trying to get it into the shot. This is an AT2035. It's a large diaphragm condenser. That's what I've been using. If I don't use that, then I'll use one of my pencil condensers. And then I use the sample delay trick where I'm delaying the left side by 10 or 15 milliseconds to create artificial width, essentially creating the Haas effect. But Nathan, I hope that helps. I really enjoy recording in stereo, and the XY is the easiest if you've got them. Just make sure that you align the capsules on top of each other. Let's see. Zen Chief Rick asked, I'm so late, was trimming our Palo Verde tree because one of our cousins is coming with a mobile home and I need to make room. Life gonna life, man. Absolutely. All good. All good. Let's see. Mikhail says, in a dense mix, I found myself recording in mono is good enough. Yeah, I can agree with that. One of the tricks that I use when recording and where do I use stereo and all of that is like if I have a hi-hat track and I want to layer it with another hi-hat track, I will keep the first hi-hat track kind of in the middle. It's still a stereo recording, but I'll keep it kind of in the middle. And then I will do artificial widening on the second hi-hat so that they're, even though frequency-wise they're kind of on top of each other, in a mid-side approach, it creates enough separation. So yeah, Nathan says, XY it is, time to figure out sample delay. Thanks for this, Dave. Nathan, remind me, are you in Logic? Because I can show you how to do that in Logic. But even if you're not in Logic, most DAWs have this kind of thing. And so the sample delay is, and tell you what, let me see, let me find a sound. Try to find a sound that, yeah, this is a good example because I've already done this. All right, so this is the string line on this track, right? Okay, so Nathan's on Reaper. That's okay. There is some kind of delay that will enable you to do this, all right? So you want to look for any kind of delay to where you can delay the right side or the left side by milliseconds or by samples. I think in milliseconds, all right? So I have this track and I'm going to go. Now this is a stereo recording and it sounds okay. But watch what happens when I delay the left channel by 5 milliseconds. Hear how much wider that is? Let's take it back. And here it is widened. Now let's throw a meter on here. This is Logic's multimeter, which is criminally underrated. It is so freaking good. But I'm going to turn on the goniometer, which is fun to say, but also gives you a picture of the stereo field. All right, so we can see, if I turn that off, you see how that's kind of straight up and down, right? But when I engage the sample delay, see how it's kind of more of a ball? And we can also see our phase correlation. See, there it is. Our phase correlation start dancing around. Let's turn it off again. Again, it's in mono, or I mean, it's not mono, it's in stereo, but that just sounds wider. Now let's make that 15 milliseconds. And now look at the goniometer. It was at 5 milliseconds, it was kind of a nice tight little ball. But at 15 milliseconds, it creates even more width. But beyond all of that, let's listen to how it sounds in context. We'll back up from the top. All right, so this is the strings with no widening. Now, here comes the widening. Check it out. So that's with the widening. We'll turn it off. Now with it. Without. And with. Let's check that to 5 milliseconds. Without. With it. Yeah, it just helps widen things out. And so, in addition to just left, right, in addition to frequency distribution and complementary EQ curves, you can also think center and mid. And I think that really benefits TV music because it's that center versus mid that gets interpreted in sound systems and sound bars. And if you've got like Apple AirPods, and how it kind of spatial audio, how it parses a stereo signal, it's a mid-side process. So if you put things that are more kind of wide, not left or right, but wide, then when it runs through spatial audio, or when it runs through a sound system that can parse out into surrounds, it's using the width and the stereo signal. And so it can be really, really cool. And so I love thinking in mid-side versus just right and left. Speaking of, that also means that when I am panning things, I never ever pan things hard right or hard left in a production music track if I don't have something of equal, not just importance, but equal balance on the other side, because that creates artificial panning that I find is dangerous to put into a track. Mikhail mentioned how much to be aware of the negative correlation in this case. When I hard pan guitars, it's often a lot in the negative. It really, really depends, and it's a case-by-case basis, because while we can look at one track in isolation, and we might look at that, let's go back to our wide, right, our goniometer, our phase correlation is kind of pushing into the reds. But if we were to put this multimeter on the full mix and then take a look at this, I hope it's okay. Yeah, so you can see how the sum is pushing into, oh, you can't see that because the chat is covering it up. Right, so in isolation, that one sound is a little too phasey. And what I'm looking at is I'm looking at the phase correlation here in the multimeter. But as a whole, the whole mix is actually okay. It's in the green, and so we're safe. To Rick's questions, how much is too much? For me, it's at the point where it starts sounding like separate sounds. Because what we're doing with the sample delay trick is we are fooling our brains into hearing stereo width as stereo placement, right? So we've got these strings, and if they're nice and wide, then our brain goes, okay, the left signal, the left channel is hitting, my left ear is hearing the whole sound 5 milliseconds after, and the only way that works is if there's a sound coming from this side, or your brain tries to, it's like an aural illusion. Your brain tries to interpret it as sound existing in space, right, within space. So this is called the Haas effect, I think it's Haas. Now, if I were to take, and let me go back kind of earlier here. So that's 5 milliseconds. Here's 10 milliseconds. Our brain is still processing this as one combined sound. Let's do 15. All right, now it sounds even wider. And by the way, spoiler alert, any widening plugin you buy is doing this. Most likely, all right? Let's try 20. 25. Oh, now you're hearing it left and right. 30. 35. Let's go to 50. Now your brain can clearly hear the right channel separate from the left channel. Let's go to 100. And your brain doesn't try. Now it thinks, okay, now I've got a sound going right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, right, left, not occurring simultaneously. Now, different sounds have different thresholds for when it starts kind of tearing apart. Sustained sounds are much easier. You can get them much wider because it's all sustained. Short sounds like these spiccato strings, and by the way, these are BBCSO spiccato strings. Wow, that's making me crazy. That's like some binaural beat stuff. Let's go back to 15 milliseconds. No, yeah, it's too wide. Let's go back to 5. But short sounds like this, if you get much above, 10 or 15, then your brain will stop hearing the sounds as one combined sound. Yep, Michal says psychoacoustic, 100%. 100%. Excellent, excellent, excellent. Yeah, by the way, this is a cue that's in progress, so be on the lookout for this to show up on the podcast and show up as a cue breakdown. All right, what else, guys? What else? Any other questions? Oh, Rick mentioned, have you looked up the Glenn Johns method? Yeah, that was in reference to drum miking. And I have a variation of the Glenn Johns happening over here. It's not exactly the Glenn Johns. Mainly, let me turn off the music here. When doing the Glenn Johns method, let me back up. Glenn Johns is a producer. I think he did like Led Zeppelin and all that. And he famously recorded Led Zeppelin with, I think, 4 microphones, like John Bonham with 4 mics. Okay. He had a kick mic, a snare mic, and then he had 2 overheads. And one overhead is pointed directly to the snare drum. And in the Glenn Johns method, the second microphone was actually parallel with the floor tom and was right over the floor tom, the same distance from the snare drum as the overhead, right? So you had overhead mic pointing at the snare, then you had a separate mic pointed at the snare, but above the floor tom. And so if you're John Bonham doing John Bonham things, then that on a kit that had a single rack and 2 floor toms, right? And so there was no second rack tom. Then that overhead mic is going to pick up the snare and the rack tom, and the floor tom mic is obviously going to pick up the floor toms, right? So that works really, really well. You get this really open sound, and other than measuring the distance between the center of the snare to the overhead and the center of the snare to the side mic, you're in good shape. Now, for me personally, I didn't like that sound because I'm doing jazz stuff and funk and hip hop kind of beats on my drum set. So I actually moved the mic from over the floor tom to over the drummer's shoulder, right? So it's still equidistance from the snare drum, center of the snare to the overhead, and center of the snare to the over the shoulder mic. And I've been really happy with that. Really happy with that. Okay. Rick asked, do I have any pets? Yes, we have 3 cats, 2 of which are mine and Shannon's. Shannon's cat, his name is Alan Silvestri Rickman. Yes, that is his full name. And we insisted that the vet had Alan's first name. First of all, Alan, because I think naming animals completely mundane human names is charming AF. So Alan. And was it Jurassic Park 2? Alan. And Alan Silvestri because he's, one of my idols. And Alan Rickman because we're a huge fan of Alan Rickman. And that was Shannon's contribution. And so Alan Silvestri Rickman, it's registered like that with the vet so that every time Alan has an appointment, we come in and they put the names on the little whiteboard or the little welcome board. They're like, welcome of all of the pets that have appointments that day. And so it's like, welcome Cookie and Fluffy and Otto and Alan Silvestri Rickman. Oh, it's beautiful. Absolutely love that. So that is Shannon's cat. He's about 3 years old. And he's like, if a puppy was a cat, this would be Alan. My cat, her name is Lucy. She's about 16 years old, and she's my old girl. And she loves nothing more than climbing up on my lap, pawing at my hand, and insisting that I just pet her constantly. And then, as you may know, I can't remember. I'm sure I've talked about this on the podcast. Shannon's mother-in-law lives with us, and and she's getting up there, and we don't have any kids. So when it came time to start looking at taking care of Shannon's folks, we invited her mom and dad to live with us here in Florida. Her dad passed away in 2020, but Judy she's doing great. And her cat is named Digger, because if you've ever heard this dude in a cat box, you would know exactly why he's named Digger. And we've always had cats. I love cats. I was never a cat person until I married Shannon. I was a dog person, but it just takes one kitten to kind of crawl up on your shoulder. One of the most vulnerable animals in the world is trusting you to be good to it, right? And so, yeah, I don't care if you're a big burly Harley guy or if you're a robot, you cannot resist a kitten nuzzling up. So yes. Let's see. Those are the pets that we have in the house. Rick asked, a Headley Grange too, Mike in another room, on another floor too. Yeah, yeah, they did all kinds of crazy stuff. There at the school we taught at in Memphis at Visible Music College, we had a partnership with Ardent Records and Ardent Studios, which is a recording studio in Memphis that recorded. They did a ton of contemporary Christian bands, but they also, I think they recorded Led Zeppelin there. They recorded not Big Country, not Mr. Big, the band that did the theme for that 70s show, Hanging Out, right? That, whatever the name of that band is, they recorded there. Also did a bunch of 90s kind of alternative bands. Anyway, they had some stories where they would take an amp and put it in the stairwell and mic that, and they would get some amazing sounds. They also had just an amazing microphone cabinet, and they had vintage electric pianos. They had vintage snares. They had a vintage Mellotron that we could only ever use for about 15 minutes at a time before the thing would overheat and the magnetic tape on the Mellotron would start stretching and the whole thing went out of tune. So we had to let it cool down and all of that. Robbie has a Rottweiler named Bella Grace. Oh, that is adorable. Awesome. Catalin asks, how can one join only through 52Q's subscription? Oh, do you mean when you say join it? I lost the thread. If you're talking about the briefing room, then yes, that is a benefit of being a family subscriber, and not in any kind of gatekeepy kind of way, like subscribe and then you get briefs. No, the briefing room has an entire process of multiple rounds of revisions with feedback videos, and it's much more. If you just want to pitch to opportunities, then do Taxi and all of that. That's much you're going to have much better luck with that. The briefing room is if you want to pitch to libraries, yes, but also learn along the way. One of the things that Shannon and I have said about the community is we're kind of like a teaching hospital, where we're doing real things, but we're also learning about it. And so it's not uncommon at all for somebody to give a cue in the briefing room and there be things wrong with it. It's not uncommon for things need revisions for like naming and titling and where does the underscore go and all of those deliverables. And you sent me A files, but I need WAV files. And so it's like I said, it's intended to teach you and mentor you and coach you along the way. And so so that's what the briefing room is really, really about. Rick says, speaking of pets, I have to take Max to get his nails trimmed, but I have to take a shower first. Me and one of the sisters who run the place have to hold Max down 125 pounds. Yeah, we took Lucy in for a nail trim, but they wouldn't trim her nails because she was behind on some of her shots. So she got like her vaccine updates. But they're also like, while we're here, should we go ahead and do a blood panel and all that? I'm like, okay, yeah, sure. But by the time they got done poking her with needles, she was so stressed out that the vet tech couldn't trim her nails. So we had to take her back. They gave us some sedatives to give her, so we had to do that. And we didn't even get the nails done because by the time they tried to do her nails, she was so upset, and the vet tech came by and said, we can't do her nails right now because she has become a danger to the employees. Awesome. Catalin has 3 cats, a calico, a tiger striped, and a tuxedo. Oh, Catalin, tell me, is your tuxie, is he a crazy person? Most tuxedo cats are like crazy, super smart, but they are absolute characters. Every tuxie we've ever had has been an absolute character. Agent Smith says, a world without cats would be chaos. I agree. Cats are they're like having grumpy roommates. You know, they take care of themselves. They don't need to be walked. They poop in a box. They're easy to take care of. The Negrom, what's happening? What is my musical journey? First DAW, was I ever a starving musician? Stuff like that. What led you here to YouTube Live? Well, I appreciate the question. That is a pretty deep topic, and I would point you. I did a full episode on my musical journey, and I went all the way back to like 5th grade. But the TLDR is that I'm a band nerd. You know, I took up percussion in middle school and high school, and I had a real affinity and skill for timpani. I was the timpani kid. You know, in the percussion section, there's like the mallet kid, there's like the timpani kid, and then there's like the snare drum, bass drum kids, and then there are the just don't hurt yourself kids. When play the triangle when I point to you, that's when you go ding. I was the timpani kid because I could hear pitches, and I had good like relative like pitch retention and aural skills, which has come in really handy here as a production music composer. And I wanted to go into film scoring and film music, but I was really good at playing drums. And so it just came super naturally to me. To be honest, I never really had to work at it. I mean, I was always gigging and playing. And so I took kind of like a 15-year detour into being a percussion educator, and that's what I did in Memphis. And then I got the opportunity to come to Full Sail, and I was able to go really full into music composition. Because in Memphis, I was a percussionist who sometimes wrote music, and I focused on like lo-fi. We didn't call it lo-fi back then. We called it trip hop or acid jazz, and I focused on those. I loved doing remixing. But I was a drummer and a percussionist first. That's what I taught, who did a little bit of writing. When I came to Full Sail in 2012, that flipped. I became a composer who played a lot of music theater and did some gigging and everything, but the composing world got bigger and bigger. 52 Qs got bigger and bigger. I started taking on more roles. I'm now a department chair for the music production program at Full Sail University. So I had to step back from playing drums professionally. And to be honest, I kind of thought that being a drummer was a closed chapter. But I had the epiphany in the last Christmas season, where enough time had passed to where I started missing playing, right? Because I wasn't trotting out to gigs. I wasn't waking up every single Sunday at 5 a.m. so I could be in Tampa by 7:30 and all of that. So I wasn't doing any of that. And I had missed playing. And I had the epiphany that just because I'm not gigging, that doesn't mean I stop being a drummer. And so that's when, like last year, I brought the drum set up, mic'd it up, and then over Christmas, I bought an electronic drum kit. And the drums that you were hearing in this track here, those are all performed on my Simmons SD1250, which isn't like a top of the line kit, but I didn't need a top of the line kit. And it looks really good in the background of the shot, doesn't it? It looks like I'm in a percussion haven. I've got frame drums and stuff. Anyway, and so that's kind of my journey. My DAW of choice is Logic Pro. Before I came to Full Sail, I was full on. I was a Reason guy, and I loved Ableton Live, but I was teaching Logic at Full Sail, and so I went full on into Logic Pro. But I am coming back around to using Ableton, and I will be using Ableton much more consistently for reasons I can't publicly state yet. But yeah, Ableton is not going away, and Ableton Live, I should say. Ableton is a company. Ableton Live is the DAW. That's like calling Logic Apple. But that's my DAW of choice. Let's see. There was another question in there, wasn't it? I thought. Sorry if I'm missing that. I thought there was. Was I ever a starving musician? No, not really. Because I consider myself like a journeyman of music, and so I was always gigging or teaching, or I had chump jobs like being a roller rink DJ, or working third shift at the call center for American Express, or working at a print shop, or working at dollar movies, or retail. And so what led me here to YouTube Live is the community 52Qs, which started out as a Facebook group. And then I started doing a podcast. Well, it started out as a vlog where I'm just going to check in. I'm going to commit. I'm going to write 1 Q per week for an entire year and kind of vlog about it. And then that turned quickly into wanting to teach about production music. And so that's where we are now. Yep. Catalin says, tuxedo is a boy. He's very long and muscular, likes to relax and chill. Cool. Okay. Caitlin, is he a long hair or short hair tuxie? Shannon and I have a theory that all tuxedo cats are super smart, but the short hairs are the crazy ones. So maybe that. Agent Smith says, life on the road sucks after a while. Yeah, it's short-haired tux. Okay, well, you are the exception that proves the rule, which is fine. All cats are different, but every tuxedo cat we've ever had has been certifiable in an amazing, funny way. Robbie says, I see an electric kit. Which one, and do to use it as a trigger for samples? Do I use it to play MIDI into Logic Drummer? I use it to trigger drum, and I want to be clear about this. I've only done a handful of tracks, but one of the reasons I got the electronic drum kit was I was working on a cue, and I can actually play it here. This is a cue called Funk Salad Annie. And I was programming the drums, like finger drumming, and I remember having this moment in the middle of this programming where I was like, if I could just play it on drums, like the muscle memory of being a drummer since 1985 was like, there's so many better, easier ways to do this. So that's what prompted me to get an electronic kit, and I was able to get a really killer deal on this Simmons through Guitar Center. And again, I know Simmons isn't top of the line. If I had my druthers and $9,000, then I would absolutely get a DWE kit, and it would sound and look and feel exactly like an acoustic kit. But I'm just using it as a MIDI trigger, like MIDI interface. And so that's massive overkill. So that's the one that I use. I only use it so far to record like funk and rock stuff. Basically, the types of cues that benefit from a live performance. And I'll show you kind of what I mean. Going back to Rock the Hoop. Check out this stop. Right, that little blop, 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 blop. That's the kind of stuff that I could do as a drummer, like in my sleep. But programming that, like using a keyboard or finger drums or sample pads or whatever, was really, really difficult. It was just counterintuitive to my 40 years of playing drums. And so those subtle nuances are tough. First of all, you're never going to get them through like using Logic Drummer, the drummer feature. You're not going to be able to have that kind of nuance of a performance using loops. And so that's why I went there. That's why I went there with that. So yeah, there was a question. What do I use on the 2-bus on that track? It's very gluey. Well, that is really, really kind of you to say that because, and I'll actually pull it up here so you can see what I did. It was a real challenge because I thought that the biggest challenge of mixing live drums was all of the process that you have to do. And I thought that was a product of live drums. And so when I went to do the MIDI drums, I found myself having the same challenges. Like it's not really coming together. So I had to abandon the idea that I could just mix it the way I would mix some loops from Splice or something. And I went in and actually multi-tracked, or not multi-tracked, but multi-outed, if that's the right term. I did multi-outputs for the track itself and did some compression. I did lots of dynamic EQs here and even did some snare EQing here with some envelope shapers. And it's not a ton, but I also found out like the room mic adds so much to this. Like let me kill the room mic. Let me turn it back on. Without it, and let's play it in context. Right, so that's without the room mic. Here it is with it. Without. With it. Without. With it. Yeah, and so it adds so much. Now I am also pushing the kick, the snare, and the toms into a side parallel compression rather, and I'm just using the one knob pressure for that. And so without it, with it, without, with. Without, with. So yeah, it just adds a little bit of extra beef. And because I outputted out of Addictive Drums, these are Addictive Drums, what's it called? United Heavy or something like that? Yep, United Heavy. And parenthetically, I did have to go in and really spend a lot of time tweaking the MIDI map. That took a lot of time. And this is why I'm only using Addictive Drums right now because I've only done this intense MIDI mapping in Addictive Drums. I need to do it for Logic. I need to do it, for like Easy Drummer or any of the other drum libraries, Abbey Road drums and the Native Instruments stuff. But it just takes time. It's very laborious because the Simmons SD1250 isn't one of the the super popular ones that everybody's going to know that are built in for the MIDI mapping. Like if I go here, I made my own, but it has Alesis, it does have Simmons, but only the SD600 and other Roland. So, but yeah, at the end of the day, whether it's these drums or not, I try to use a very gentle hand with this kind of stuff, because I believe that the simpler the better, and we shouldn't just throw a ton of plugins just because I saw a YouTuber do it. You know what I mean? The Negrom asks, your studio looks really cool with the drums. Thank you for sharing your story with me. I'll check out your other material. Oh, you're very, very, very welcome. And Shannon, if you're still around, or if somebody is still around who could help out, or I can look it up. I'm going to see my journey. See if I can't find a link for you on how I got into production music. Give me 1 second. My path to production music. Yep, I got it right here. It was 2022 week 8. I'm going to put that link into that. Yep. So that's the YouTube. It was 52 Qs podcast 2022 week 8. Warning. We hadn't gotten our logo t-shirts yet, and the lighting is garbage because that's just slowly evolves over time. Excellent, excellent, excellent. All right. What else? Any other questions? Otherwise, we'll call it a day there. Well, once again, everybody, thank you so much for joining us. A big shout out to everyone in the chat. We will be posting this in the podcast feed tomorrow, so be on the lookout for that. But like I said at the top of the show, a huge word of thanks to the family, friends, and neighbor subscribers of 52 Qs, without whom we would not be able to do any of this. So please know that we love and appreciate every single one. We love and appreciate all of you, whether you're a subscriber or not. I love you. Thank you so much for joining us. And if you are interested in joining us at 52 Qs, it's free to join. It will always be free to join. Head over to 52qs.com. And while you're there, you can join the community, or if you'd like a one-on-one coaching session, then you can order up one of those. You can order up a feedback video. And we would love to have you. You're very welcome, Steve. Very welcome, Robbie, and Greg. You are most welcome. Now, next week, what is the topic next week? Have we decided? I don't think we need. Next week, yes. Next week, I'm going to be joined by Andy Gessner, who is a videographer and a marketing director and A&R person. I sit down with him and we talk about, do we, production music composers, need a brand in 2025? So that's what's coming up next week. But I hope you had a stellar week. Thank you so much. And I just want you to remember, friends, that the universe has amazing plans just for you. Until next time, peace.